what is the new traditional? My name is Jennifer Kim, and I'm the chef and owner of Passerotto in Chicago. It's such an exciting time in Chicago right now because there are a lot of restaurants that are exploring sort of that, I don't want to say it's morphing, right? But it's adding like these additional layers to what we think of as traditional, which is really important to talk about because as a society, like as Chicagoans, like there's so many other influences and cultures that are changing us. And I think it's important to recognize those and to also celebrate them. So Passerotto is really, it's, I don't want to call it like a dream restaurant because that always sounds like really cheesy, but it's a Korean restaurant. I am a Korean American, and you know, as a child of immigrants, you kind of have like this weird duality of like, I am Korean and I am American, and like, where do I fall on that spectrum? I didn't want this to be a Korean American restaurant. There are Italian influences, but it is not a Korean Italian restaurant. When you think Korean food, you think like barbecued meats and hot bubbling stews. There's like a very particular like thought that comes to mind when you think of Korean food. That's not necessarily, you know, how I ate every day of my life. That doesn't necessarily reflect how I grew up. For me, when I couldn't have Korean food, like eating Italian food was my comfort food, you know, and it made me feel the same way that Korean food made me feel when I'm like missing home or anything along those lines. And then there's definitely Midwest influences. Like I'm Chicago born and raised. So like for me, like this is my tradition of growing up as a Korean American in Chicago. I don't know if this is like something like reminiscent of like when I was in college and I'm like, yeah, remember that time? But it's ddukbokki that we make, and then we pan fry them so that they're nice and crispy, and then we make a essentially it's the same sauce, like it has the same flavor profiles, but we do make it in the style of like Central Italian ragu. So it does have like braised lamb in there, has mirepoix, a lot of like additional components that kind of add some depth to it. But at the end of the day, like any Korean person that comes in and orders that, they're gonna be like, oh man, like I remember that one time in college at like 2 in the morning when like I had like a giant plate full of these. I mean, it's just something that I've always wanted to do for the last, you know, decade, but never really felt emotionally ready, just because like it's more than just cooking, it's more than just food, it's more than just something that I've learned. This is a part of me. You know, it wasn't until the last year or two that I felt like, okay, like now is the time. Like I feel like I have a story to tell, and you know, I have the opportunities and the platform to be able to showcase those.